Right, we're going to hear in a few moments' time from our final panel, which is where we're going to bring back all 7 STBs back on stage, and we're also going to hear briefly from John Hall from DFT. Is going to round us out. But before that, as billed, let me introduce Mark Bonnor-Moris, Chief Commercial Officer at BP Pulse. Mark, you're going to set out what you describe as the EV infrastructure gamble. So I'm going to leave it at that and let you explain what you mean by that. So, Mark, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. It's really great to be here today. My name is Mark, as introduced, and I'm the Chief Commercial Officer at BP Pulse, and I run our public sector and fleets part of the business. It's really good to be able to talk to you today about EV charging. Big things are happening over the next few years that will increasingly change the way we drive and fill up. And STBs and local authorities are going to play an increasingly important role in this transformation. Okay, perfect. I wanted to quickly introduce BP Pulse. I'm sure many of you will know our parent company, but might not know what we do in this space. I've been with the business for over 6 years and in the EV market for 12 years, and our business and market has changed almost beyond recognition in that time. I initially started in the EV business working for Siemens. We operated the Source London scheme for TfL back in 2010. The move to ChargeMaster, and at ChargeMaster we worked a lot with Transport Scotland, and we operated the Charge Place Scotland network for them. And recently with BP Pulse, we've done a lot of work with Nottingham City Council on rolling out the D2N2 network across that region. And throughout that time, the network has transformed massively, and there's been some good decisions, and there's been some bad decisions in terms of the rollout of that network. Here in the UK, we operate the largest public charging network in the country, with over 9,000 charging points that last year saw 1.8 million charging sessions. We are also the major supplier of home and business charging points in partnership with the likes of Royal Mail and Ford, and direct to customers themselves. We have some exciting plans for the future, and but I'll come to that in a bit. Okay. If we look to the future, it's clear that the demand for electric vehicles is growing at an astonishing rate. In the first years of 2020s, more electric cars have been sold than in the previous decade combined. There is no sign of this slowing. In the first quarter of this year, standard car sales were in decline. EV car sales were up around 40% year on year. By the time we get to 2030 and the government's planned ban on the sale of new internal combustion engine kicks in, we'll see around 11 million vehicles on the road. However, there are a few things that customers need to make this transition real. 1, the supply of cars, making sure there are enough for everyone. 2, that they are affordable. The market should do its part here once we get to scale and things like the second-hand market kicks in. And finally, and most importantly, to BP Pulse and all of us here today, is that there needs to be sufficient electric vehicle infrastructure in place to give consumers the confidence that they can charge their vehicles and complete their journey without having to worry. To build that confidence, we need to make sure that we have the right charging infrastructure in place, and that will mean different things to different consumers. Home charging will be easy, convenient and preferable to some consumers, but 40% of households don't have access to off-street parking. On-street parking and charging can be logistically challenging, especially as we transition. Destination and workplace charging will also provide opportunities for charging. But key to building this confidence, especially amongst early adopters like commercial fleets, will be rapid and high-speed charging hubs. This will be particularly important for drivers completing long journeys. The slide here shows, based on our market analysis, customer data and international experience, where we predict the energy demand will exist for charging by the time we get to 2030, and why we need to significantly increase the amount of fast charging available to the public. as the proportion of energy used shifts away to high-speed sites. There was a build. To meet this demand, BP Pulse has some exciting plans. We recently announced our intention to invest £1 billion in the UK's EV charging infrastructure. We are already the largest network, and this investment would see the number of public charge points in our network triple, with a significant increase in our rapid and ultra-fast charge points. This will go hand in hand with improving customer experience, network reliability, and customer offerings, all to give the ever-increasing customers confidence that there is a fast and reliable network that can meet their needs. That's investing in availability and reliability, all the challenges that the whole industry need to work on to build consumer confidence. So how does the country get to the point where we have enough infrastructure to give drivers the confidence to switch? The government is heading in the right direction. It increasingly agrees with our view that demand should drive investment, and that a focus simply on charging point numbers is not helpful. It's more about installed capacity and utilisation, and that, for me, is how the market has significantly changed and has to continue to change over the last few years. The government's electric vehicle charging strategy, published recently, was definitely a step in the right direction. We now need to just focus on delivering. That's certainly BP Pulse's focus. Challenges that remain. There are 3 areas we have challenges. 1, getting grid connections. This can be slow and expensive for both private sector and public sector. Finding the right sites and getting access to land. We continually work with both public and private partners to find that land and invest in the infrastructure. And 3, making sure regulations fit to make this expansion happen. In each of the areas I've just set out, there is a strong role for private and public partnerships. We've been working with the public sector right across the country to deliver charging solutions and local networks. That includes places like Nottingham, I mentioned, and surrounding area, to put in over 450 charge points and over 70 rapid chargers since 2018 alone, or helping public and private organisations electrify their own fleets, such as the Royal Mail. You can see from the slide that progress has already been made across the country, from bringing private sector investment to bear even at this early stage, moving from highly localised public-funded areas to an increasingly scaled national network. Through the announcement of the Local Electrical Vehicle Infrastructure, or the LEVI Fund, the government is making £500 million available to help get infrastructure in place across the country and putting local decision-making at the heart of it. We expect legislation to pass that will put the responsibility on developing infrastructure plans onto local authorities. It is here that we need to work together to make sure that we are putting the right infrastructure into the ground. The private sector brings technical expertise, and the local authorities and STBs bring local knowledge and understanding, all really important to getting it right. Together, we can electrify our drivers. However, there is still a long way to go to get the right infrastructure out there, but we are making progress, and BP is certainly playing its part. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mark. Mark, a couple of questions before you disappear off. I suppose, just reiterate, what do you need from the STBs at BP Pulse? I mean, I suppose, what are the specific barriers that you think they can help to lift for you?
Partnership. We need some partnership, some contribution, ownership in terms of wanting to get involved, a willingness to open to private sector investment, and we find that we've got a model that works. We've been doing it for a number of years, as I said, but that's what it needs to happen.
And are there any particular parts of the UK? I mean, is your challenge focused around rural areas, or is it focused around breaking down barriers in urban areas? I mean, where would you say that the main challenges lie?
There is a focus of infrastructure around the southeast of the country, for sure, And there's also a focus where the original plugged-in places schemes were done. But we are seeing the gaps fill up. But yes, certainly rural areas, Wales, for example, where we need to fill the gaps for sure.
Because I suppose that there are a lot of moving parts. It is a system because you need to get local authorities on board, you need to get national government on board, you need to get power supply on board,
Yes.
so national grid. I mean, is there at the moment a forum outside of this SDB forums that helps? I mean, how do you make those connections at the moment?
Well, I think the government's trying to do that with the new Levi fund. I know that the EST are involved, and there's various plans and programs in place to try and bring private sector together with the public sector to try and put these plans together.
And I suppose there is an increasing sense of urgency. If you look at that graph
Yes.
of the number of cars that are now being sold that are EV, I mean, have you got like a time? What do you need to see happen in terms of your business expansion? What kind of numbers can you give in terms of rate of growth that you're looking at for BP Pulse?
Well, we're looking to treble our infrastructure, national infrastructure, over the next few years. I mean, traditionally what there has been, as I mentioned, it's been a bit of a numbers game in terms of just putting a charger here, a charger there. What's fundamentally changed, because you've got, I mean, I drove up here today down from Milton Keynes. I stopped at, it's not one of ours, I have to say, so I'm not selling BP Pulse here. I stopped at the site at Rugby, and there were 8 150 kilowatt chargers that had been put in. There was only one free. So it's a shift. It's a real shift from putting the odd charger in a little car park to actually putting in hubs, because that's what people want. You know, they don't. If you're on a long journey, you want to go somewhere where you can charge. You don't want to go somewhere where you queue to charge. Yeah. And that's a real shift for us, and that's why we're putting big investment into hubs. And I think a lot of this infrastructure plan, the rapid charging fund and plan for next year, will be focused on putting that type of infrastructure in.
What's the relationship with the manufacturers? Because there was a moment where each of the manufacturers were having their own investment strategies around charging. Does that still happen?
Not so much. It's actually breaking down a little bit. I mean, obviously Tesla's the most famous with their infrastructure, but Tesla are now opening up their network to non-drivers. If you don't have to be. I think there's 12 hubs they've put onto public charging, so you can either pay a subscription or you can use a contactless card. And also, I mean, BP have done a massive deal with VW, and we're putting a lot of infrastructure across there. But that won't just be for VW cars. That'll be for everybody to use. So we're definitely seeing a move away from sort of parochial networks to open networks. It's all about utilisation now. That's the key thing. And
so when you talk about a £1 billion investment, it's far from being an EV infrastructure gamble. For you, very much it's a strategy, and you need STB to be at the heart of that strategy.
Absolutely. This is inevitable now. This isn't a gamble, yeah. This is a sure thing. There you go.
Mark, thank you very much. Mark Bonnor-Moris, Chief Commercial Officer at BP Pulse. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your time. Cheers.